அது மீதி இமேஜ் அது போடுங்க. நீங்க போட்டுட்டே இருங்க. நான் போய் பசங்களை தூக்கல லைன் வந்துச்சு. போடுங்க சொன்ன ஒரு 5-6 பிக்சர் தானே. நான் போய் பசங்களுக்கு கனெக்ட் பண்ணி விடுறேன். Happy afternoon, students. Welcome to RJR Academy. So, 3 minutes I delayed, right? All right. So, how we're doing today? I hope you're all safe at home and you're doing all essential practice. So, you're all safe at home, right? You're doing all good practice. Fine. So, we are in a new unit that is a reproduction in organisms. The last part, yesterday we discussed about organisms, that is reproduction on organisms. Next, today we're going to discuss about sexual reproduction in flowering plants. This particular chapter, this may take 2 sessions, maybe today or maybe tomorrow, because there's 1.5 hour session. We couldn't complete this particular part within this 1.5 hours. So we may extend the session, maybe the next part also. So this may consist of 2 sessions, the sexual reproduction in flowering plants. I hope you're all doing like sufficient practice, all enough practice that you're doing it. It's good. Okay, so get prepared for it, whatever the irrespective of the situation might be. So focus on your goal. You just march towards it. We'll start with a small anecdote, right? Before usually we do with a small anecdote, right? A great philosopher, he was walking on the roadside and he just noticed a people, right? A person making a 3 type of statues. It's a small story I'm telling you. 3 type of statues, right? The first statue actually was made with the clay. The second statue made with the kind of metal. The third statue is made with the sugar. So 3 type of statues are made actually. The philosopher just keen, he was looking at all the 3 type of statues. Then what he did was actually he took 3 buckets full of water. Okay, 3 buckets full of water for the 3 statues. Bucket is full of water. Now what he did was like he just took the first statue, which was made up of clay. He just put it in the water in the bucket. The same thing that he did for the second statue that made up of wood, and third statue, the same thing, that statue is made up of sugar. What would have happened? Just imagine, like he mixed with the water. In the first bucket, he noticed after some time, like the statue which was made up of the statue which is made up of clay, which completely disappeared and contaminated the water. No more statue, but this statue which is made up of clay completely contaminated the water, and the water is not fit for consumption. The second case, where in the second bucket, you see there's no change in water, no change in the statue, because that statue is made up of metal, right? So third statue that you've seen, like in the bucket where you could see, there also the statue got disappeared, but The statue completely dissolved in water, but it transformed or transfigured the water to sweetness. So here, the philosopher, he just concluded, like, in the society, we have three type of people. The first type of people, like, this type of people, they always contaminate the society, right? There are some sort of people, by them, because of them, like, we won't be getting much of use, they always contaminate the society. The second sort of people, the second bucket, you could see, right, where by this type of people, like, we not get benefit, even they will not be benefited, and also, like, we will not, the society also will not get any type of benefit. But in third bucket that you see, the statue which completely dissolved or sacrificed itself and transfigured or changed the water to sweetness. So guys, I'm telling you, you're all like, the statue of sugar, right? You're not the first statue, not the second type of statue. You're all guys, like, you're all like, third type of statue. You are all made up of sugar. You're here, you're chosen this profession to become a doctors, right? To giving sweetness to the society, irrespective, like, you can sacrifice your life for the community, for the betterment of the life of the people, to cure the patients, right, to take the agony and the grief of the people. So that is how, like, you're about to choose this profession, that is actually a noble profession, we call it as the doctors. So you are like the statue of the sweetness, the statue of sugar. So this great philosopher concluded in this way, like, this is how, like, the three types of people prevail in this world. All right, with this we conclude this part, the anecdote. We'll start with the chapter, that is sexual reproduction in flowering plants. We'll begin with this chapter. In this chapter, we'll discuss especially about the plants, I mean, the how it reproduces, especially the flowering plants, the angiosperms that we're going to discuss in this particular chapter. Where shall we begin? And the last chapter, before we go to this part, right? And let us have the quick recap. Yesterday we discussed about the type of reproduction, like vegetative reproduction, asexual reproduction, and sexual reproduction that we discussed. And in sexual reproduction, we discussed about the stages where pre-fertilization, fertilization, and post-fertilization, right? So today we're going to start with the sexual reproduction in angiosperms, especially that is in flowering plants. Let us begin. So here, don't judge each day by the harvest you reap, but the seeds that you plant, what you're going to sow, that really matters a lot. Don't worry about, like, what you're going to harvest. If a sowing is correct, the seed that you're going to sow is correct, definitely, like, all your, like, the dreams that will come counter past. So thank you so much. Fine. So we'll start with this today's chapter. So sexual reproduction in flowering plants. So today the chapter, I'll write it on the board. Sexual reproduction in flowering plants. Sexual reproduction in flowering plants. This is a chapter that we're going to discuss today. Okay, so we'll begin with this chapter. As far as angiosperm is concerned, so angiosperm, which consists of the diploid sporophyte, and the haploid gametophyte. So coming to the angiosperms, today no PowerPoint, because I would like to explain certain things by means of, like, writing it on the board. So that is the reason today no PowerPoint for you. So kindly bear with me. So as far as angiosperms are what? Angiosperms are the flowering plants. Usually these are called the flowering plants, right? These angiosperms, which consist of diploid sporophyte. So two stages that you could see: diploid sporophyte, and you could see haploid gametophyte. So diploid sporophyte and haploid gametophyte, these two are, like, depend on each other, right? Fine. As for diploid sporophyte, where you could see the root, stems, the leaves, which comes under the diploid sporophyte, right? And this is the dominant phase. This is the dominant phase that we can call it as. So this is a dominant phase. And then here you could see, like, an haploid gametophyte. You could see, like, the microspore and megaspore mother cells. This megaspore mother cells, the MMC, will be getting formed. And this gametophyte, it depends on what? This gametophyte depends on sporophyte. The gametophyte, which depends on sporophyte. We already discussed about the gametophyte and sporophyte concept that we studied already, right? In case of, like, pteridophytes, bryophyte, right? So this already we discussed actually in the previous part itself. So diploid sporophyte and the haploid gametophyte. So now we'll start about the flower. As far as flower is concerned, what is the flower? Flower is the modified. So flower is the modified part of the stem. So usually we call it as the flower. What do you mean by the flower? The flower is the modified stem Simply we call it as not actually a specialized structure. Of course, we call it as a modified stem. So flower is a modified stem, we can call it as. So what are the parts of the flower? This already we discussed when we discussed the 11th standard part, where morphology of flowering plants, morphology of flowering plants that we discussed before itself, where we discussed about the different parts like calyx, corolla, androecium, gynoecium. So I have that part as actually like the quick recap of what are the things that we discussed, the morphology of the flowering plants. So let us have, you need to quickly recap what are the things that we discussed in case of morphology of flowering plants, guys. So you should have that thing in your mind. For example, we discussed about estivation, we discussed about like placentation, right? Epigynous, hypogynous, this type of flowers, right? Calyx differentiation, gamocephalous, polycephalous. These are the things that you should recollect, because this we already discussed, right? I'm not going to waste your time, but again, teaching all those things, because the morphology of the flowering plants that we already discussed in the previous part, that is the 11th standard portions itself, we discussed already about that. So I'm not going much deep in all this area. So because we are focusing in this chapter not with the morphology, we are focusing only with the reproduction, that is sexual reproduction in the flowering plants. But just for the introductory part, I chosen this image for you. As you could see in case of the flower structure. So for example, you take the shoe flower, the hibiscus you can take. So what are the structures that you could see? This is a stem part, and this is a receptacle. And you could see this is the sepal, and the brightly colored part of the flower. The bright colored part of the flower, we call it as petal. So brightly colored flower of the flower is called as the petal. Okay, fine. So then we have the pistil. So we have the pistil. So we have the pistils. So what are the pistils which consist of? Pistils consist of your ovary, which consists of your, what is it called? The pistil is the female part that you would have seen. And you could see the stigma, and you could see the style. This collectively call it as a pistil. Pistil is the female part. Whereas the male part, we call it as a stamen. Stamen consists of anther and filament. So if the flower consists only of the male part, we call it as staminate flower. So stamen is for the male, pistil is for female. So staminate flower is the male flower, and pistillate is for the female flower, if these parts are present in a separate flower. So what do you call it as? Like if the male, you could see like male part and the female part, both stamen and pistil, both are present in the same flower itself. What is the name of this type of flower? We call this as monoecious or dioecious. What is the name of the flower where you call it as both male and female which present in the same flower? So use the term, yesterday we discussed, right? Monoecious or dioecious, unisexual, bisexual, homothallic, heterothallic. This we already discussed, where you could see both male and female, like in case of hibiscus, the stamen, and also you could see pistil. So you could see the stamen. So stamen is the male part. So stamen is the male part. The pistil is the female part. So this is the female part. This one is a male part. So the both male and female which present in the same flower, this we call it as monoecious. This we call it as monoecious plant. But in case you could see in papaya, where we discussed yesterday, the male flower is separate and the female flower is separate, where that we call it as dioecious plant. So you must know the clear-cut differentiation of the monoecious as well as the dioecious plants that you could see. So what does stamen consist of? Stamen consists of anther and filament. What the pistil consists of? Pistil consists of your ovary, it consists of style, and it consists of stigma. These three units together we call it as pistil. And this anther, the male part, the anther, which produce pollen. This the male gamete which produce the pollen, that is pollen grain. And later part we'll discuss about pollen pistil interaction, male and female interaction. This we call it as pollen pistil interaction, because pollen is for the male and pistil is for the female. From where the pollen grain is getting produced? The pollen grains are produced from the stamen, that is from the anther. So that we're going to discuss by the process called Microspore Genesis, that is for male, Megaspore Genesis, that is in case of female. That we're going to discuss very shortly. So this is about the flower structures. And the stamen, so we call it the stamen, right? The stamen can be otherwise called as androecium. So this we already discussed. The male part is called as, otherwise called as androecium. The female part, the pistil, which is also called as gynoecium. So the female part is called as gynoecium. Also, we can use the word where you could call it as gynoecium as carpels. This can be also used as a carpels. The unit of the gynoecium, we call it as carpels, that is in case of female. Stamen, that is for male, you could see as a androecium. So androecium is for a male, gynoecium is for a female. Clear with this, guys? This is the basic idea about the any flower that you could take that is for angiosperms actually. Now we'll see about the terms of the flower. Usually we classify the flower into complete flower and incomplete flower. Complete, what do you mean by the complete and incomplete flower? How can you categorize? Every ஒரு flower in the flower complete flower solving, in the flower incomplete flowers solving. So the flowers which has got all the four whorls. What are the four whorls here? The four whorls are calyx, corolla, androecium, and gynoecium. If the flower consists of all the four whorls, what are the four whorls here? Calyx, corolla, you take androecium, that is a male structure, male reproductive structure, and we have a gynoecium. So the calyx of the unit, we call it as a sepals here. This is called a sepal, and this is a petal. Sepals, petal. So calyx, corolla, androecium, gynoecium. If the flower consists of all the four whorls, that in all the four, all the four whorls that it consists of, this is called as perfect flower. Perfect flower. If the flower is missing, any one particular whorl is missing. For example, androecium மட்டும்தான் இருக்கு. I mean, for example, stamen மட்டும்தான் இருக்கு. சில flowers-ல வெறும் pistil மட்டும்தான் இருக்கு. So அந்த மாதிரி flowers-ல வந்து we call that as an incomplete flower. Incomplete flower where you could see any one particular whorl. In the four whorls-ல ஏதாவது ஒரு part miss ஆயிருந்தது அந்த flower-ல அது கிடையாது அப்படின்னு பாத்தீங்கன்னா that we call it as an incomplete flower. And also you would have studied in that part something we call it as an tepals. What do you mean by tepal? Sepals na theriyum. You know what is sepal? You know what is a petal? What is tepal? Tepal na enna? Tepal na enna? You would have studied about the tepal, right? Tepal is what? Tepal is the fusion of the sepals and the petals together. This we call it as an tepals actually. We discussed like perianth நம்ம படிச்சிருக்கோம். The morphology of flowering parts-ல நம்ம discuss பண்ணிருக்கோம், right? So here the tepals, here you could see the fusion of, in the tepals you could see the sepal plus petal. The sepals and petals which fuse together and this form, that is calyx and corolla, or we call it as calyx and corolla, which fuse together, which cannot be differentiated. Sila flowers-la you could not differentiate calyx and corolla. That cannot be differentiated. That type of structure is called it as tepal. That is combination of sepal and petal, or you take it as combination of calyx and corolla. This we call it as an tepal. Okay, this thing that you need to remember. So you could see on the same time monoecious and dioecious difference. We discussed already monoecious, and we know what is a dioecious plant. So that is called in some place where in the plants which has got both bisexual and unisexual. இந்த மாதிரி இருக்கிற plant நம்ம என்ன சொல்லலாம்? சில இடத்துல for example bisexual-உம் இருக்கும், unisexual flowers-உம் இருக்கும். இந்த மாதிரி சில flowers or plants-ல இருந்தா that we call it as, what is the term that we'll give it? We'll give it as polygamous. The term that we give it is polygamous. Polygamous, we could see two types. Both you could see unisexual as well as bisexual flowers in the same plant that you could see. There you could see in the polygamous condition where you could see both the variety. That is both bisexual as well as unisexual condition that you could see in the same, right? That condition we call it as polygamous condition. So this is the introduction part of the flower. Next, we move on to a quick recap of what are the things that we discussed in the morphology of flowering plants. We discussed something about estivation. Just a quick recap. I'm not going to explain. This is just for your understanding. What is estivation? Can someone tell me what is the definition for estivation? I already discussed. I thought these things already to you. You studied already. There are 5 types of estivation, and already gave an example when we discussed about morphology of the flowering plants. We discussed about valvate estivation, twisted, imbricate, quinquential, and the vexillary estivation. There are 5 types of estivation. The NCERT-ல என்னென்ன examples கொடுத்திருக்காங்களோ அது மட்டும் படிச்சா போதும். So don't take too much. And what are the examples that is given in the books? I mean the NCERT books that you can take. The petal patterns, that alone you can take it. So valvate, twisted, imbricate, quinquential, and the vexillary. This arrangement of petals we call it as estivation. So this we discussed already. Next, we'll see about the types of the flower based on the position of the ovary. Based on the position of the ovary, there are 3 types of flowers that you could see. What are 3 types of flower? Hypogynous ovary, perigynous ovary, and epigynous ovary. We call it as superior ovary, inferior ovary, or of inferior or of superior ovary. Okay, so quinquential is not given in the textbook, leave it. Okay, so do not worry about the quinquential. This type of estivation is not given in the textbook. Don't worry about it, you just leave it, right? This is actually the types of the flowers based on the position of the ovary. So this shows the position of ovary. Based on the position of ovary, sometimes like ovary will be in the superior position, right? Sometimes the ovary we could see the inferior position. Sometimes the ovary that you could see in the of superior or of inferior position. So based on the position of the ovary, this categorization was made. This also we discussed in the morphology of the flowering plants actually. So why I'm showing all the slides now, images to you, because we're going to discuss now about the sexual reproduction of flowering plants. For that, you should recollect all the terms of that we already discussed. Okay, fine. So we're done with this part. And now the next one is the symmetry of the flower. As far as symmetry of the flower, you could see actinomorphic, the zygomorphic, and you could see asymmetric. There are like three symmetrical forms that you could see, the three symmetries that you could see: actinomorphic, zygomorphic, and you could see the asymmetric. Example for actinomorphic, example you take mustard. You take mustard, actinomorphic, mustard, and you take tomato. So tomato, these are the examples for actinomorphic. So mustard and tomato. Zygomorphic, can you give an example like, one plane, right? One plane only like this can be divided. For example, you take in a pea plants, the pea plants, antirrhinum, 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 pea plants which comes under this, that is Pisum sativum. You can take asymmetric example. It cannot be divided. It cannot be divided into equal planes, right? Here you could see in a canna plants. Canna is an example for asymmetry. So this is based on the symmetry that this can be classified where actinomorphic, zygomorphic, and we have a asymmetric. This is the three types of classification we call it as. And also you just try to recollect polypetalous, gamopetalous, polysepalous, gamosepalous. These are we already discussed the morphology of the flowering plants. Sepalous, polypetalous, gamosepalous, gamotepalous, the fusion, and how it's at free condition. This based on the sepals and the petals. This terms that we already discussed. This we already discussed in the morphology of the flowering plants. So this you can take it in a example. Then also we discussed about placentation. So placentation also we discussed. So I hope you can recollect the placentation, the part also. So now what we're going to do is now we'll immediately start with the sexual reproduction in the flowering plants. For that we'll start with Microspore Genesis. The Microspore Genesis. Here we'll be discussing about the layers, the different layers of the matured anther. But before you going with the matured anther, you must know the structure of the stamen, right? So stamen. So exactly, what do we mean by the stamen? As far as the stamens are concerned, yeah, the stamens which consist of how many lobes it has got. The stamen consists of 2 lobes. The stamen, which usually consists of 2 lobes, and mostly if it is 2 lobes, how many chambers? This consists of 4 chambers. So this is a 2 lobe. This is a lobe 1, and this is a 1, and this is a 2. You could see the 2 lobes in this case. So bilobe structure. So anther is a bilobe. It's a bilobed structure. When you just cut, you could see 4 chambers. This is 1, 2, 3, and 4. These are the 4 chambers that you could see inside the anther. So we have the bilobe structure and 4 theca, the chambers which present inside. So there are certain cases where you could see the anther which consists of 1 lobe. Where there is only 1 lobe, where you could see which family you could see only 1 lobe. Certain cases where you could see this consists of 1 lobe. Say like an example, the family called as Malvaceae family. Malvaceae. This family, the plants which has got only 1 lobe. But in other cases, like often you could see bilobe structures only. Only the family Malvaceae, where the anther seems to be 1 lobe structure. But majority of the angiosperms, the flowering plants that you take, which has got bilobe structure, that you should remember. So the stamens which consist of 2 lobes, and this is the anther part, and this one is the filament. Together we call it as a stamen. This is the male part of the flower. Okay, so this we have done it actually. So now we're going to cut the section. So I just cut the cross section. I just made the cross section. How it look like inside. Now I'm going to zoom it. This part I'm going to zoom it. This part alone I'm just going to zoom it and see. So if I just take one particular theca, 1 chamber, I'm just going to zoom out. Just I zoom out and see how it look like. So this is how the structure will look like. Okay. So for example, you see here, these are the 4 chambers that you could see, the 4 chambers, where the chamber 1, the theca 1, theca 2, theca 3, and you could see the theca 4. There are 4 theca which present inside. Okay. So now it just go and again magnify. Again, it just zoom in. Just zoom in and see what are the layers that you could see. This part is very important, where from this part you may get a question. So this is important. You may get a question from this part. So this process that we call it as microsporogenesis. Microsporogenesis that we're going to discuss now. This is for the male. We'll start a little bit later about the female. Now we talk about the male, where the process we call it as microsporangium. How the microsporangium which produce the microspore, that is pollen grains. ஒரு மைக்ரோஸ்போராஞ்சியம்ல இருந்து ஒரு pollen grains, அதாவது microspores or male gametes எப்படி வெளியில வருது, இந்த process பேரு தான் we call it as microsporogenesis. Microsporogenesis. Fine. So when you see the examples where you see the enlarged, when you magnify the image, where you could see there are the 3 layers that you could see. So you can take it as like even 4 layer. The outermost layer is called as epidermis, then endothelium,